Lately, I've been a bit of a couch potato. You may find that surprising because you're always hearing about me going, Emily the Energizer Bunny. Sometimes I'm participating in charity events and board meetings, and then there are the times like when I participate in the MS Ride or I'm out cycling. And then, of course, you know how much I love dining al fresco with friends in the summer. Except for the few weeks each year when I have to honor my seasonal adjustment fatigue. I am generally someone who is very active. Maybe you're wondering why I've been more of a couch potato lately. It's because I am a full-scale, 100% unapologetic Olympics junkie. I just can't get enough of the Olympics. I DVR pretty much everything. I love the swimming, the diving, the surfing, the fencing. Of course, you know I love watching the cycling races too. And don't even get me started about gymnastics. To me, gymnastics is the ultimate team and individual sport all blended into one. Watching the U.S. women's and men's teams compete and then win medals was one of my highlights of the Olympics so far. Watching self-proclaimed nerd Stephen Nedorosik nail his pommel house routine to put the U.S. men's team back up on the podium for the first time in 16 years was one of the best stories I've watched in the Olympics in a long time. And of course, the redemption tour of the U.S. women's gymnasts overall, and for Simone Biles and Suni Lee in particular. Watching them battle through injuries, mental health issues, rare kidney diseases, the against all odds stories. That stuff goes straight to my heart because in many ways, I myself am an against all odds story. I never call attention to the fact that I have multiple sclerosis with the desire to receive anyone's pity. But I do have to acknowledge that living with MS for 43 years and continuing to thrive is my own version of winning an Olympic gold medal. I was never a great athlete in my youth. It wasn't until I was in my 30s that I started cycling. Staying alive and staying well has been my Olympic-like quest. Because of that, watching the human interest stories during the Olympics is exceptionally special to me. One of my good friends, Christiana, she's also an Olympics junkie like me. She says, I like my Olympic human interest stories exactly the way I like my pizza, with lots of cheese. Perhaps the Olympics human interest story of the best human interest story of all time is the story of Shaul Ladani. Shaul's story transcends not only athletic perseverance, it's one of the most inspiring stories I've ever heard in my entire life. For those of you who don't know Shaul Ladani's story, grab a box of Kleenex. Shaul Ladani was born in Belgrade, Yugoslavia, now Serbia, in 1936 to a middle-class Jewish family. He lived with his father, who was a chemical engineer and a patent attorney, and his mother, who was a law student. He had one sister, and his two grandparents lived with them. Before Shaul was 5, he spoke 3 languages: Hungarian, which he spoke with his parents, German, which he spoke with his nanny, and Serbian, which he spoke with the outside world. About the same time Shaul was speaking 3 languages by age 5, the Axis armies invaded Yugoslavia, and 11 days later, the country surrendered. Over the next year or two, Shaul's family tried to stay on the move and flee, but they were eventually captured and sent to the Bergen-Belsen concentration camp in northern Germany. Shaul and his immediate family were eventually freed and sent to Switzerland. After the war ended, they unfortunately learned that Shaul's grandparents and other family members were murdered at Auschwitz. Seeking a more permanent sanctuary, Shaul and his family immigrated to Israel when he was 12. Years later, during his military training, Shaul discovered he had a gift for endurance and marching fast. After being dubbed the King of Marches, Shaul started entering race walking competitions, which eventually led him to qualify as a speed walker for the Olympic Games in Mexico City in 1968. 4 years later, Shaul once again represented his home country Israel at the 1972 Munich Games. I'm going to guess that most of you know what it might have been like to be an Israeli athlete at the 1972 Summer Olympic Games in Munich. One night back in the summer of 1972, Shaul was awakened by his roommate with disturbing news that the murdered body of one of their teammates had just been tossed out of a neighboring apartment window. Shaul and his friend escaped through the rear of the building. Later, they learned that 9 of their teammates were taken hostage and 2 were killed while trying to resist. When it was all said and done, Shaul was one of only 5 Israeli athletes who survived the Munich massacre of 1972. Shaul went on to win 28 national speed walking titles in Israel during his lifetime. In 1972, he set a world record time of 7 hours, 23 minutes, and 50 seconds for a 50-mile walk. That record now stands. It still stands today. Amazing. There are so many things that inspire me about Shaul's story. The thing that inspires me most is his perseverance and his resilience. In 2022, Shaul returned to Germany to attend the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Bergen-Belsen, along with the 50th anniversary of the 1972 Munich massacre. While being interviewed by ESPN, Shaul said, "You do not need one single lucky event to survive. You need a series of lucky events. Fortunately for me, I had them." One of the main reasons I love sharing my story about living with MS for 43 years is because I have never felt like my life is less than because I have lived with MS. Much like Shaul, a series of lucky events has made my life story unfold in a most beautiful way. My hope has always been that in sharing my story, I might inspire a few other people along the way to share their own stories of resilience and perseverance. The Olympics overall may have turned into big business. They may not feel quite the same as they did when I was a kid, but one thing has never changed. When it comes to pressing on and overcoming challenges, nothing is quite as inspiring as a good Olympic human interest story. I'm looking forward to enjoying the last few days of the 2024 Summer Olympics. In 4 short years, we will be getting ready for Los Angeles 2028. It's not likely I'll be competing for a gold medal in any of the events of those games, but who knows? Maybe I'll be there speaking about my story, my best-selling book, and about thriving in my 60s after almost 50 years of living with MS. That, to me, is the best life story I could have ever written, and I'm so grateful. Well, time to extinguish the flame on this month's video blog. Enjoy the rest of the month of August, and I'll see you in September. Ciao, ciao for now.